This is me. This is my beloved wife, Sylvia. This is Sylvia's idea of sailing. This is my dream of sailing and my hope of circumnavigating the globe as a retirement project in 2029. This is Sylvia's reaction to that idea. I am on a 6-year quest to convince Sylvia that a circumnavigation is a wonderful adventure, but the clock is ticking, so join me as I search for the perfect yacht that Sylvia will love, and get all your ladies to subscribe and cheer Sylvia on in the comments. Welcome back to another episode of Naval Gazing at Camp David, and this week is my first interview. I had a wonderful opportunity to sit down with Rob Poirier, who is president of Privilege America at the Miami Boat Show, and I'll tell you, he is one knowledgeable, entertaining, friendly, and lovely guy. As it turns out, he and both his marketing and support team, a couple, are all Canadians. The support team is from around Nelson, and Rob is from Ontario. And they're just a lovely group of folks, and Rob has an incredible depth of knowledge and taught me a few amazing things that I think will have a significant impact on the potential success of my circumnavigation with Sylvia. So without further ado, I just want to thank Rob for doing this with me and tolerating my efforts here. First time I've tried to edit together 3 cameras, and he was just an absolute pleasure and a joy to work with. So thank you, Rob, and I hope you do enjoy this video. We're here with Rob Poirier on the beautiful Privilege 580 with the front cockpit this time, because we had the, well, what's the one without the front cockpit that we had at Le Grand Mont?
It's called the one without the front cockpit.
There's a proper name.
Well, actually, there's no actual dedicated name for it. What I've referred to it as on some of my literature is simply as a circumnavigator.
Okay.
Simply because it does create that additional storage capacity,
Yeah.
which somebody who's going to live and sail around the world might want. Not to suggest that you couldn't circumnavigate with a forward cockpit. It's a way to identify and basically separate the boats.
Gotcha.
A little bit.
But this config on this boat, I mean, if my stocks come through, there is no question. Sylvia would walk onto this boat and just go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what you've done, it's really the oyster of catamarans, is the only way I could describe it, or the contest of catamarans.
Yeah, I like the comparison to oyster and contest, but not maybe for the reasons that you're imagining.
Okay.
So if you get aboard a boat like a contest, look at how it's built. Look at the methodology of construction. I'm not concerned at all about the luxury environment. Luxury environments are very easy to achieve, which is one of the
Sadly, nobody does it as well as you do, though.
Well, okay, perhaps that's true, but luxury in this day and age is pillows and cushions, it seems, right? I mean, an awful lot of boats can be measured by the square footage of, you know, cushions that you're going to see on board the boat, which actually, for the live-aboard sailor, if that's what we're talking about, because your plan, Dave, of course, is to sail around the world.
Right.
So you're going to have a vessel that is going to be exposed for months on end to the elements.
Yeah.
You're going to discover that most people don't have enough interior storage capacity to store all those cushions.
Yeah.
So as nice as they are here at the boat show, they start to become a real, you know, pain in the neck out on the open water. So believe it or not, one of the reasons I might call a boat like this vessel without that forward cockpit a circumnavigator is not just because I've created this additional storage capacity, because I've eliminated cushions, right?
Right, okay. But now, why wouldn't you compare this to an oyster? On build quality and such?
I do. I like Contest a little better.
Okay.
Oyster's a great boat.
So does some of the fellows I've talked to, yeah.
So if you actually look at construction...
As far as construction goes, yes.
Now keep in mind, the construction comparisons of the two boats, you can equate them, but there is a distance between them. A catamaran has certain complications that make it harder to build a good catamaran. It is easier to build a good monohull than a good catamaran.
Why?
Well, the best comparison, a good friend of mine who's just a brilliant naval architect, who's worked in both fields, and he's also built a lot of commercial boats, which is why he's a brilliant naval architect, and he hasn't just dealt with toy boats, as he calls these, is that if you look at a good catamaran, a good one that'll endure, one that isn't a big butane lighter of catamarans that in 10 to 15 years is pretty much a write-off, is that it has to be organic, like a tree. If you look at these palm trees behind us, the reason that tree survives severe storms is because there's parts of that tree that are firm and unmovable. Right? The roots better not start moving or we're in trouble.
Okay.
Other parts of the tree should move a little bit and others a lot more.
Okay.
So that's how a good catamaran can be built.
Almost the Japanese way of architecture.
Perhaps, yes, of course. And so to build that right is a lot harder than on a monohull. Frankly, you can get away on a monohull laying up a 4-inch thick hull so that everything is stiff as can be. And that is not a deterrent to the strength. In fact, it might promote the longevity of the boat. Okay. Whereas on a catamaran, you can't do that. You can't just lay up weight, because it needs to move. Because of the twin hulls, that there's a certain movement that is required. But if there's too much movement and too much work in certain places, you'll discover why so many catamarans that are much, much younger than monohulls are not worth a big investment to repower or to put on a new rig. This is what happens with a lot of catamarans are retired younger because of that. So for a lot of people, they don't care. I mean, and I'll say that to people, if you're going to buy a new boat and you expect to have a 5-6 year ownership project, then go ahead and buy the cheaper built boat, because frankly it's going to be the future owner that's going to suffer the consequences. And he's going to be left with the situations to say, is it really worth repowering this boat? Whereas a friend of mine has recently bought an older CNC built in 1978. And frankly, that boat is far better built than most monohulls or boats in general today. I mean, he's a naval architect himself. So for him, he recognizes that there's more value in him in gutting that boat, you know what I mean, building a new furniture, putting in new engines, wiring that boat. He'll actually have a better boat than the average boat for the same amount of money than if you had bought a new boat.
So does some of this sort of answer one of my questions, which was, why in a premium boat like this haven't you gone to a more exotic fiber like carbon or a more exotic resin like epoxy? Is that part of that?
It is part of it, because what we're trying to do here is build to a method that is proven reliable. So I'll tell you what I tell everybody. Buying a boat's a bad idea. So start... No, but at least if you go into it with total enthusiasm,
Understood.
Total joy, then you'll survive that bad idea. But if you come into it and you buy it the way, you casually come to a boat show, all these boats are performing beautifully at the dock, go visit the 10-year-old model of what you want to buy. Go visit 2 or 3 if you can find that. In Florida, it's the greatest place to do it. Go down to Marathon, go over to the Bahamas to Georgetown, go to the liveaboard communities and start seeking out the comparable vessel from the builder that you're looking to purchase. This is, I think, a really important effort to make, because that really says a lot more about what it is you're going to buy than what you're seeing.
So tell me about your technical choices in the hull materials, because this is where I got slammed by the audience that I was very shallow and I wasn't even looking into this, and that's what got me into understanding all these different resins and fibers and all this.
So what people are doing when they're shopping a boat, they're looking at boat specs. Boat specs don't tell you 5% of what you need to know about a boat. What you need to ask are better questions than whether, yes, we work with vinyl ester and good product. Obviously our boats wouldn't have their longevity that they do have if we didn't. I mean, I've had more and more people point out to me that one of the reasons they're interested in privilege is they've noticed that a lot of the YouTubers who are sailing the cheaper boats, their YouTube channels have become fix-it shows, right? Okay, my hatches are leaking.
Well, this is the thing that almost frightens me away from the whole liveaboard concept.
Right, but my God, the salon windows are coming out, the stories are endless, and yet there's a couple of privileged people out there in YouTube, And the show is about replacing pumps and putting a new water
You're right.
maker.
I mean, I haven't seen Keith do much more than...
I'm not going to identify specifics, but nobody's repairing broken bulkheads or window, salon windows falling out, and that is because the boat was built to a methodology that has longevity in mind. And that comes down to, there's simple ways of measuring that, because I don't want to ask my clients to become technical, investigators. That's a mistake. But there are certain clues, and you can find out, and one of my favorite clues is, well, how long does it take to build your boat? So if you take, for example, one boat I know real well about the details is because we build a 50-foot boat, and it's an excellent vessel. We build the Privilege 510.
Yeah.
It's an excellent vessel. And it takes about 50 to 52 weeks to build that boat, from beginning to end. I know for a fact, because we have people working in our shop, France being boat building epicenter of the world, we have several people that have worked for the bigger builders. And they will tell you that the production boat builders are building a comparable size boat in 45 days.
Wow.
52 weeks, 45 days. You know what I mean? This is not a story about efficiency. It's a story about what I like to say is it's almost impossible. And the chemists in your audience will recognize that if you're going to build a boat well, you want it to be a holistic project. Kind of like I talked about how the tree, has to work in certain ways. Certain parts of the boat have to have movement, and others. The layup procedure in the hull of a Privilege it'll take us more to build a hull than for many of the boats in the marketplace today to build the entire boat. And that's because there's no fast way to do that fiber, that glass layup, to position bulkheads in such a way and to hand tab them all in place. There's a lot of building going on out there today that depends on a lot of glue. We don't use glue.
Oh.
Right? So if you're using fairing compound and epoxy to glue things in place, it doesn't take long to find out that might not be a permanent solution to a boat construction.
Now,
anyway, so I want to simplify this. Again, people are going to get into debates all day long about which anchor is the best, what generator is the best, you know what I mean? And I've watched people ready to kill each other on these subjects.
Yes.
It's a mistake.
Yeah.
It's a mistake. When I people telling me that we should use more carbon fiber because it's unbreakable, they're not listening. I've been in this business for over 20 years. I've known multiple sailors whose carbon fiber masts have just failed catastrophically on passages, only to raid shards of glass all over the deck. Am I against carbon fiber masts? No. But do I think it's indestructible? I mean, I know some of the Vendée Globe sailors who sail carbon boats around the world, and those boats will break into multiple
They just shatter, really.
They will literally fail catastrophically when they fail. Carbon fiber strength by weight is fantastic. But when you're trying to accomplish something with a boat, that is to build an enduring, long-distance, live-aboard vessel.
Yeah.
So here's another little antidote, a little cue that I will ask your listeners to consider. Why is it that so many of the people that make a living sailing very fast boats, setting world records, when they put their families on the boat, never buy a performance boat? The very founder of Privilege, the history of this company tells people a lot that they should consider that many people don't. Philippe Gentot, who founded Privilege Marine, with a naval architect who still works with us, Mark Lombard, those two characters knew more about performance boats than all of the other performance boats on this dock combined. In fact, they owned round the world records for many years, and some of Philippe Gentot's records in some smaller races still haven't been beaten to this day. I mean, the man had his name on an Adidas running shoe. He was so world famous. And yet, when he built boats for families, including his own, to go sailing, they were a privilege. They were not a performance boat. Why did that guy, who understood the oceans so well and understood boats so well, not want to put his family on a performance boat?
It's an interesting point. But you know what surprised me when I did that little comparative that I did up here? We compared it to, an Outremer 55, a Lagoon 55, the Privilege 580. I had to throw in the Sunreef 60 and the Bally 5.4. The performance of the Privilege, and according to the numbers.
What number?
The sail area over displacement, the displacement over length.
Okay.
the privilege is not the lead sled that I get thrown at when talking about it. It
How
is
is it that people are, again, they're using a false narrative. So when people are comparing boats, and your group of comparisons are frankly a little nonsensical, because if I was to purchase a car, I would never say, I'm going to line up, there's 5 cars in the market that are about the same size. That's about all you've got in common with these boats, is how their size.
well, the commonality on some of these is, what would Sylvia say? Just from a very surface, how much area is there? Is the bed low, and can I get, does it look like my bedroom?
Comparing a sunroof to, say, a Bally.
They have those commonalities. The bed a courtship and it's low, and I'm sorry.
Boats. That's as far as having.
Well, these are the things. But in Sylvia's mind, there are commonalities there. Not in your mind or my mind.
Right.
And the Outremer is the only one that doesn't fit that sort of Sylvia mold. Right. But I wanted a comparative on performance, because I get privilege criticized for lack of performance, and I'm going, I just don't get that. And when I look at these numbers, it's not true.
But
these are.
But even that is fine. Yes, this boat is a far better sailor. All our boats sail better than most people. People have commented to me many times that they watch. You were bringing up the sailing family and Keith.
Yeah.
One time, and they did a video where they were sailing together, and the guy on the Outremer was saying, I can't believe this, I can't lose the privilege. That's the heaviest boat in the water with the most people, the most tools, the most dive gear, and I'm sailing this fast boat and I can't lose this guy. I've had this comment come back to me. People are amazed.
And that is what's so curious to me, because the numbers don't tell the whole story, and I need to talk. You need to talk to real people who've really sailed to really get the truth.
And the truth is that performance is a measure of far more than how fast can I go. So I'll tell you a little dark secret, because I've delivered a lot of boats over the years, and something I've observed many times. Sometimes I've been a little frustrated by this, and that is the guy that seems to be the most preoccupied with speed. You know what I mean? During the purchasing process, when we finally sail with that family or that buyer, and there's been cases where we're in conditions where we can sail very fast, and that is the first person that wants us to throttle down, slow down, calm down. We're going too fast. I've actually had a client once want to throw drogues out the back of his boat, and it was, trust me, we were in no risk whatsoever. And yet that gentleman, when he was buying a boat, his biggest hesitation is the boat wasn't going to be fast enough. So in the real world of cross-ocean sailing, people observe. I've even made a video myself trying to point out to people that very often the fastest boat in the fleet, on these arcs and stuff, do not outperform the slowest boat in the fleet. In fact, you can find examples where the go fast catamaran arrives ahead of the 20-year-old Hallsberg Rossi by less than 5 hours.
Well, it's interesting. I saw a video by a real deep geek who took the ARC data and sliced it 50 ways from Sunday and said, this is nonsense. This whole performance thing, it's nonsense.
Right. And I did the same video, but I tried to be less in depth because I know that people get angry at this. But here's the truth about different boats. Is the boat built to do the project you have in mind? And you're talking to me, and this is why I'm being specific. Because if your project is to go to Race Week in Key West, do not buy a privilege.
No.
It doesn't go to weather the way a boat with dagger boards will. Okay. You need to buy a boat with dagger boards. You need a boat that's designed to go to weather. But the truth is, the person who's deciding to sail around the world is going to avoid going to weather. If they don't, they're going to. Sylvia is going to say goodbye tomorrow. You're going to sail based on the season. We had a client one time that I'd love to tell the story because it tells it well. I had a client who completed an 8-year circumnavigation, and we had a little party for this really nice couple when they'd completed the navigation. And some buyers of the same brand of boat wanted to gather and meet Chris and his wife and talk about their experience. And somebody pointed out that on the Genoa there was only one sheet. And somebody said, oh, what happened there? And the owner said, well, nothing happened. It's been like that for the last 6 years. And we all said, well, wait a minute. You've only had one sheet on your Jenny for 6 years? And he said, Rob, you've obviously never sailed around the world. He goes, if I have to tack, I'm not going. right? He said, so all I'm doing is leaving a sheet out there to die in the sun.
Yeah.
So that's an extreme way to manage things, but it does speak to an honest point. As the ancient mariners who circled this globe for years knew that you follow anybody who wants to comfortably and safely and maintain the joy of the process is not going to choose upwind tracks. So why would you buy a boat that's designed to perform upwind when you don't want to go upwind? And so going back to that example of where a client is saying, why is this boat that's much heavier than mine keeping up with me when I've got dagger boards that are useless in those circumstances?
Right.
They don't benefit you in those circumstances.
Okay.
So all I'm saying is that buy the right boat. And I'm not criticizing performance boats.
Yeah.
I frankly love performance boats. We're parked right beside a really gorgeous little 40-foot trimaran.
Oh, yeah.
That to me is the coolest boat in the show. Coolest. But if I'm about to sail around the world, it's the last boat I'm going to buy. Right? But if I want to go off and stay close to home and join the various race routes, that's a boat to seriously consider. You're going to have a hell of a lot more fun on that boat than this.
Well, of course, the most famous of the YouTubers is going to the 60-foot version of that. I don't know how he's going to get his wife to agree to do the speeds that thing does, but... So,
and here's another argument that I hear at the boat show, and let me dispel from people all the time. And if you watch YouTube, it'll get dispelled. People will tell you, I have a performance boat because I can outrace the storms. Well, then you got
this is the constant. Point is the, and I'm thinking, really?
So don't take my word for it. Just ask yourself, because there's plenty of performance boat YouTubers out there, and ask yourself, why are they heading into the storms then? Why are they having the daylights beat out of them on purpose? And you can tell they're having a miserable time of it. Because obviously they did that on purpose because they can outrun the storm. So why are they always finding themselves in the middle of storms? Because it's nonsense. You know what I mean? Do a little homework. You cannot outrun the storm. First of all, you can't always judge where a storm's going to go.
Yeah.
This is your first problem. Maybe you could outrun it if you knew absolutely what it was about to do, but you can't. So this is a bad methodology for choosing, and an argument for choosing a boat too. And I will tell you that when you're talking about making your choice, and this is what your videos are about, making a selection, I'm not going to tell you that privilege is the boat you should buy, because I'll tell most people they shouldn't buy a boat at all, because most people fail at this project, Dave. Yeah. Most people do. And the starting point is not understanding a certain reality, and that is boats are very different. And when a person wants to compare a multitude of boats, they'll compare vacation class boats to liveaboard class boats to performance boats. And people say, I'm down to 3 boats, and they'll often have one of those 3 in each category. And I've said, you haven't even begun to make up your mind of what, because you got to decide what you're doing first. And they'll say, no, we know what we're doing. I'll say, you obviously don't, because if your plan is what you're telling me, why are those 2 boats even in your discussion? Right? Because if that's what you're planning to do, 2 of the 3 boats you're choosing to buy are not built for what you're doing. They was not built for you. Now, right? And that's what people are failing. Now, you can do anything with anything. Right?
But I'm wondering, though, this elusive class of performance cruiser.
Yeah, let's not just focus on performance. People make as big a mistake on other boats as well.
Okay.
You know, it's not just performance. In fact, far more people buy boats that are not meant for they were designed for most people are buying boats today that were absolutely designed for the vacation market.
Well, my biggest concern, I guess, is not speed, it's light airs. You know, I'd like to sail more than I motor. How does that perspective impact what you're saying?
So go back to your friend's video, the diced and sliced light air, because now you forced us back into the performance discussion. And there's one little metric that you can look up. It's very easy, because the ARC is a great organization for giving us all this free data. Engine hours. If these people are sailing in light air, why do they have as many engine hours as the guy who doesn't sail well in light air? Explain that to me. And go back to that video and look that up.
Okay.
And this is a real confusion, because again, I'm being told all the time, well, I won't need to turn on my engines. Really? Then why are these guys turning on their engines? So all that information's out there. Don't trust. I'm a salesman at a boat show, and there's a lot of salesmen at boat shows. Don't take anything I say beyond that. But the evidence is out there to find your own answers.
So if I'm going to take what you say, and we look at probably the 510. Because that's probably where I would end up. This is a very large boat, and I'm not sure I'd feel comfortable doing it, even though I love it.
Yeah, so you're on the right track.
Yeah. So if we're looking at the 510,
Right.
given, let's assume I actually achieve this circumnav. Let's say it works.
Right.
We get Sylvia on board.
Yeah.
What boat? Obviously, the 510 is in there. I mean, it's in the tops, especially for Sylvia.
Yeah.
What boat would you compare to that? What others would you put in that class?
So I really like the Amels.
The monohull.
Yeah.
I love the ML monohull too.
Because so here are the three barriers that you're going to have to overcome with Sylvia. And I warn people before they buy any boat.
Yeah, the healing.
So it's three things. And this is why people will sell their boats. But there's a lot of pretty new boats on the market. A lot of people should ask themselves, why are people spending 5 years like yourself studying, organizing, planning, buying a boat and selling it in 18 months?
Yeah.
And it's because there's three things that you have to overcome. People are three things most of the time. They're bored, sick, or scared.
Okay.
Okay? So you have to say, what can I successfully eliminate from the equation? All right?
Okay.
And most people are shopping real estate and they're not looking for solutions to those problems.
Okay.
Okay. The problem that you can eliminate the easiest is scared.
Yeah.
Fear, all it'll take is one event where you feel that weather crept up on you too
totally
fast,
agree. Yeah.
and the main's not coming down. And if you try to turn the boat to weather, right? First of all, you're having a hard time turning the boat to weather. And if you do, you're taking a beam sea, and drama is unfolding, and dishes are flying, and the wife is saying, if I survive this boat is effing for sale tomorrow, right? This happens a lot. And people they think it's pina coladas and bathing suits. When in fact, weather is the first consideration everybody should have when they're buying a boat. So the reason why I will love a boat like an ML, even though I think a boat like a Contest might be better built than an ML, that's to be decided. Both are great boats, but I would choose the ML myself over the Contest simply because it understands weather. That is a company that has been dealing with liveaboard long distance sailors for decades, and they've figured out that people need to have weather protection should be a priority. It's not at a boat show, it shouldn't be. In fact, even we're guilty of that at a boat show because it's hot and sunny and we're in Miami. We take all the enclosures off, we take all the helm protection off. And but when it comes to buying a boat, that is an easy one. And weather plays into that whole aspect of fear, right? If you can really protect Sylvia from weather, you have a much better chance of succeeding from this, right?
Okay. So Nick is correct in his fixation with a sheltered helm.
Who is Nick?
Nick and Teresa on Ruby Rose.
Oh,
he has an absolute fixation with a sheltered helm, which I didn't understand because he comes from a monohull. And like, why, when monohull sailors get on a cat, does everything have to be enclosed? But I guess, I mean,
weather has a lot to do with why people give up. So in my early incarnation in the boat business, I've always dealt with catamarans, by the way. I've only ever worked with catamarans. I've worked as the only rep for a builder. I've owned a boatyard, and I'm now a representative for a boatyard, but it's always been catamarans. But in the early days, when I first got started, I was involved in a power catamaran project.
Okay.
And we did very well. We really flourished in the power catamaran project, and I learned a lot about sailors from selling power catamarans. Because 100% of my buyers were ex-sailors. And I never got over the fact that every single one of them told me, when I would ask them, why on earth? Because I'm a sailor. I love sailing. I'm not a big powerboat guy. Why are you giving up sailing? Weather. People give up sailing. The reason why the powerboat market is so much bigger than the sailing market is two reasons. People enter the powerboat market directly and never take up sailing, and sailors end up in the powerboat market.
Really?
Because of weather. So the whole trawler industry, somebody I used to know once ran the biggest trawler magazine in the world, and when Bill and I would talk about this subject, he would say, I'm a former sailor. All my readers are former sailor. Everybody out there buying a Katie Krogan, from a Nordhaven to a Fleming, are virtually, almost without exception, former sailors. And what are they doing? Two reasons why they moved, by the way. Number one, They move because they're trying to escape weather. They want an indoor pilot house. They want pilot. So that should be a priority for you as you're looking at a boat. It should be an absolute priority to make sure that you have a place to run that boat where you've got great visibility, because powerboats tend to do a much better job of creating pilot houses, especially trawler class boats, that give you great visibility in bad weather. Because a lot of boats do give you great visibility in good weather, but the minute the weather bad, there's crazy ideas out there. And if you have to look through a boat, that's going to be very old, especially in weather.
Yeah.
Looking through boats is a bad idea. And there's some really strange helms out there. It should be a priority that everybody talks to me about. Yeah, the helm is good because I can see all four corners of the boat for docking. Yes, that's true, but can I? And the minute somebody says to you, here's a piece of advice. If a boat builder says to you, don't worry, you can steer the boat from inside. Don't buy that boat. Because the builders acknowledge they don't have a good helm. Because steering from inside is your visuals are compromised.
Well, you don't have control of the boat.
Right. You have to make a dash for the line.
Yeah. That's never made sense to me.
You want to be where you have access to your sheets, to your halyards, right there, and visibility is good right there. The minute you have to make a run forward, back, in between to get to lines.
It's interesting. So Windaloo, in that their rather interesting new design, has something there as far as their pilot house
I don't know the boat well.
Oh,
I've seen it at a camp.
Yeah, you saw it at it was at Le Grand Mont too. The 54 was there.
But I haven't toured the boat, so I'm not going to comment on specific boats. There's a lot of boats that have some great ideas.
Yeah.
And I also caution people that one great idea is not going to solve the live aboard long distance sailor experience.
Yeah.
Right? Because very often a boat builder will get fixated on an idea and really do well at that idea, but sometimes cast aside all the other critical elements in return.
So when you say scared and weather and these guys are buying trawlers, switching from sailboats, is it because of the control in weather and the shelter, or like?
Yeah, it just
can you not
look? Let's face it, the boat buying market at this, because
like a trawler doesn't scream along.
Look, the boating world has changed dramatically. So baby boomers, we ruin everything, right? We've ruined everything. So we've taken boats, and there was once a time when I got into this business, most of the class of buyers that were buying these significant boats had been cradle to grave sailors. They had bought their first boat when they were, first married, and they were 23 years old, and as the family grew, so did the boat, and by the time they were, retiring, they were buying their first significant boat. Half of our boat buyers are baby boomers, and their first boat is a 50, 60-foot offshore cruising catamaran worth millions of dollars. That just didn't happen 20 years ago.
Yeah.
People felt that and why it's changed is a good story. The difference is communications. The fact is they can get information 24/7. They can get a weather router telling them to go. You know what I mean? If you're going to cross the ocean, you don't need to know a thing about boats or weather anymore, because the weather router will tell you to go straight, left, right, stop, go back. You know what I mean? You can avoid.
Exactly.
It's wonderful. Yeah. So I'm not criticizing it. It's a good thing that somebody with little experience can safely sail around the ocean. But it's people now buying and driving the market with no knowledge about how boats work, operate, or built. The guy who's been fixing his boats for 30 years before he buys a real boat comes to you with here's the secret. Talk to the guy who's buying a boat, who's owned boats his whole life, and ask him, what is it that you're looking for? What are your priorities? All the guys who come to me and say, I want shaft drive, I'm buying your boat because of shaft drive, are not new boat buyers, because they don't know the difference. When most people come to me and they'll say, tell me about the boats that differentiate, how will you differentiate? One of the things I'll break up, for example, is I'll say, we don't use sail drive. It's shocking.
And that is the one absolute, undisputed agreement among every single person I've spoken to. Shaft drive is the way to go.
Right. But here's what most people say to me when I tell them that. When I say, don't buy a boat with sail drives. You know what most people say? What's a sail drive?
Oh,
So you got a problem. That wouldn't have happened 15 years ago. In fact, 15 years ago, one of the ways boat builders slagged the other guys, especially the American builders 15 years ago, who've lost their market. They're all gone. Most people don't even remember those boat brands anymore. But one of the ways they used to slag the imports to try to sell their boats, they'd say, oh, wait a minute, that French boat you're looking at buying has sail drives. And people go, oh, geez, God, okay, forget it, right? But over time, that connection to experience has become so stretched that most people don't even give it a second thought.
so back to scared.
Right.
Can I avoid scared on a sailboat with a good helm?
Yes,
Okay.
but you can avoid it with a few things. How does the boat perform? Everybody says performance, and they hear one thing. How fast does your boat sail?
Yeah.
That's really a terribly, uneducated,
Myopic
narrow
sort of,
So wait a minute. What does the boat? How does the boat perform in heavy seas?
Yes.
Because scared.
Yes.
The boat's performance. A boat that is poorly constructed and poorly considered for heavy seas will scare people. If the bridge deck clearance, for example, isn't adequate, right? Then the slamming
scares the
and
liver
the
out of
cheap
them.
construction of the furniture, feeling like it's going to come off,
And the squeaking.
right,
and
will scare people. They'll think, is this boat going to break? There's
Yes.
one way. Another way, if the boat is too light and the boat is basically launching off the waves and absolutely surfing at high, people will send me screenshots all the time of how fast the boat is sailing. I said, yeah, that doesn't mean anything, because I know 5 seconds later, once you're at the bottom of the trough, you're back down to 6 knots, climbing your way back up, and then you'll surf down to 16 knots again. That's meaningless. I don't want a screenshot of you doing 16 knots down the side of a wave.
Yeah.
But for some people on some boats, you know what I mean, where those hulls are super narrow and the boat's super light, and those boats slam and the wave crashes into the forward salon window, that's scared.
Okay.
People start to discover
Okay.
that they discover fear. And remember, there's Coast Guard reports out there that will point out that people abandon perfectly good boats all the time. And it comes back to weather protection, because what will happen is people start off at first dealing with weather where they're going to start to just deal with some cold.
Okay.
They're cold.
Yeah.
And then, of course, cold is a great way to bring on fatigue.
Yeah.
And the sound of 35 and 45 knot winds screaming through your rigging. And if you don't have good weather protection, you don't have a good sound barrier to those scary sounds of weather.
That's an interesting point. That's a really good point.
It's screaming through your... I've been there many times.
All of your senses then get attacked.
I've been on boards. I've helped people move boats that don't have any of that weather protection. And I've seen people physically frightened by the noise.
Okay, so we've got scared.
Right.
Sick.
Well, sick, there's a way to solve sick, but it's something that's hard to predict. And you're not going to predict it by doing charters in the Avicos or the BVI, right? You've got to do some true passages to discover whether or not that is something you're going to survive. And by the way, I can tell you that is one of the easiest to overcome for most people. Most people will find a solution. There's all kinds of methodologies out there, and
Okay, so we got scared, sick, bored. That's
bored.
that last
that
one,
is
isn't it?
That's a killer.
But
So you know who isn't bored? And this is where your clients who love technology have an advantage over many. Sailing a catamaran is crazy easy. It's crazy easy.
Yeah.
Right? It is the least difficult barrier to enjoying this process possible.
Yeah.
The nice thing about a catamaran is it gives you so much real estate. I mean, if you have to douse and flake a sail, you've got a tennis court out front.
Yeah,
to do it on.
exactly. Yeah.
Not so easy on a monohull where as you walk forward, you get less and less boat, right?
Yeah.
That's a tricky thing. You've got to become a little more skilled at bringing a sail down, flaking it, and putting it away.
Right.
Whereas on a catamaran, the whole family can get out there and participate. So board for some people is simply a matter of, okay, I'm on a 3-week passage. We've set the sails. Everything's going well. What am I going to do now? I didn't bring enough books. I don't like watching movies in the afternoon. Boredom really is a real factor in why a lot of people sell their boats.
Interesting.
They get bored. Not the guy, by the way, who loves the fact that boats are always breaking. Right? That guy's never bored.
Never bored. Yeah.
All he will do is continue to accumulate tools. And
now that might be the one for my Sylvia, because her nickname is Buzz Buzz, and I mean I'm on the couch. I can be as lazy as my dog.
Right.
But my wife looks at me lazy on that, and she can't be. Yeah. So that's an interesting thought.
Some people, I've observed, when you sell boats, you get to sail with strangers.
Yeah.
Right? Most of you are going to sail with friends and family.
Yeah.
So you know the people well, and you can speak to them bluntly and more honestly than with a customer who is essentially a very nice stranger.
Yeah.
A stranger you like, but it's still a stranger nonetheless.
Yeah.
And I've also been involved, for many years we used to organize flotillas, where we didn't go sailing with 2 or 3 boats. We would sail with 9 to 12 boats at a time.
That sounds like fun.
It was fun, and it was a wonderful learning window. I did that for 9 years, and I got to observe, say, 10 couples on the exact same boat model, sailing in the exact same weather to the exact same destinations, having absolutely different experiences, which was really a real eye-opener for me.
Interesting.
Right?
Now, was boredom addressed better in a flotilla?
So, absolutely.
Okay.
Because a flotilla is a great cure for boredom, because the social networking factor is underway.
Well, this is what I've been told.
Yeah.
I beg ladies on the channel, please send a message to Sylvia. Tell her, and I get these messages from lady sailors who said, this is the most fun I've had since high school. And the comment I get more regularly, because Sylvia's concern is loneliness, isolation. She is she's half Spanish, she's a people person, and I get the sense that this sailing community is very social.
It's very social. In fact, it's one of the things that makes the boating life work for some people. And this is why when somebody says, I want to sail around the world, I say, good. I've had many clients sail around the world. But I've had a lot of people, that experience kind of ends their boating life, because they do spend long periods of time all by themselves.
Well, the funny thing is I'm doing a series right now, a mini-series, on the 4 circumnavigation rallies, where you can do 2 16-month, you got the Oyster, you got the Ark, and there's 2 30-month, the World Yacht and the Grand Large. Right. And that sounds like a great way to do it.
And what has also really worked, where I've really watched people succeed at living, I've had clients say to me, I really hate boating. Sincerely, I don't like it. I love the life. Because they will find friends and they will buddy boat all over the Caribbean year after year. And I've had people actually say to me, I'm not a fan of boating. In fact, I've had clients say, we rarely raise sail. It's more hassle than it's worth. Because we're going to make a one-day passage from this island to the next.
Yeah.
And for one day, I mean, a lot of people have observed how many boats are out there sailing with head sails alone. I'm sure you've probably noticed yourself, because a lot of people say, head sails are easy with furlers, open, close, putting up the main, that's dedication.
There was a 56 Dufour in Vancouver, and the broker said, it's 5 years old, the guy's never raised the main.
Right. So that's not a guy who loves sailing.
No.
And yet they can love the lifestyle.
Exactly.
What they've done is they've found a community. People sail together, they travel together, and it's a wonderful thing.
So
it can really
scared,
work. And that's a way of that cures boredom.
Yep.
So factor that into your.
So scared, sick, bored.
Right.
This conversation did not go to any of the questions that I had prepared, but I have learned the 3 big lessons of making Sylvia happy on this thing.
That's right.
Scared, sick, and bored.
Actually, I always consider those characters, those reasons why. Look for why this project fails for so many people when they dream about doing it their whole lives. That's an important question to ask. If you dream about doing something forever, and such a high percentage of people abandon the idea so quickly, it's worth investigating. Here's another very important thing to do, Dick.
Okay.
Do not ask people their opinion about their boat when they own it.
Oh.
Ego gets in the way of an honest answer.
Because that's exactly what I was trying, the criticism is, you know nothing about boats, Dave. You're just doing this fluffy review.
Right.
And I was thinking, maybe I can resolve that by talking to people and getting their feedback on the boat.
Talk to them about their boat after they own it. Or more specifically, because now you're talking generally about the entire vessel, but also talk to people about decisions they made on their boat. I'll give you one example. This is what caught my attention many years ago. Is I love to interview, like you're doing right now.
Yeah.
I love to talk to my clients why they're buying their boats. Try to discourage as many people as I can. You know what's their first boat? What their first?
You're a great sales guy, aren't you?
No, because I also like having happiness. I'd rather know that, like I said, one person once I had a client who was a psychologist, and she said something to me once, and I thought, this is really good. And Lydia was a really brilliant woman, and I traveled with her and her husband for a long time. And she once said to me, marriage is fundamentally a mistake. Right? Most end in failure.
Yeah.
And I started to think it's a lot like buying a boat, because she said, however, if you enter it with naive oblivion and joy and excitement, right, that will carry you over into the parts of that decision that could make it work.
Yeah.
But if you go into it with any trepidation, with any misgivings, right, so making a mistake poorly considered and without that level of enthusiasm is a good way for it to fail. And that's what I try to say to my boat buyers. You're probably making a mistake. But if you do it with lots
enthusiasm
of, and all that information doesn't kill your enthusiasm, you have a really good shot of this being great for you, because it's probably the best mistake you ever made. Like, I love my wife. I've been married for well over 30 years, and I love her to. For me, marriage has been the greatest thing in the world. But I was married once before that.
As was I.
Right. It wasn't such a good thing.
It wasn't such a good thing.
So therefore,
oh man,
these things matter. So interview people after they've owned their boat. But don't just not about the boat.
Yeah.
Ask people, hey, I notice you own that brand of tender. What do you think? You will get a far more honest answer. I've observed a lot of people answer people, you know what I mean, about their boats in ways that protect, I think, a little bit about their buying decision.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I've literally listened to people rave about boats that the hour after it was sold will tell you what a horrible boat, what a horrible mistake. And yet, the year before, I heard them recommending it up and down. There's a certain device. I got to wrap it up. The boat show started. We're at the Miami Boat Show here, Dave.
Oh, so Rob, this has been fantastic. Like, the interview did not go the way I thought it would. We didn't bother with any of my questions, but I think I've learned more in this time than I would with all this stuff. So thank you very, very much. Absolutely outstanding. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I absolutely enjoyed chatting with Rob. The interview did not go at all the direction that I thought it was going to go. I had lovely questions laid out. I had comparative charts. I had everything ready to go. I think we might have got to one of the 15 questions, but what I learned from that interview and from Rob's experience was worth far more than any of the silly little questions I could have come up with. I think he did a wonderful job. Please do have a look at Rob's channel and Privilege America's channel. They do a beautiful job and have a wonderful, wonderful product. And thanks again to Rob and his team. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Have a great week.